Hey, good morning, my friends. It's Hammer. Today is Thursday, May 16th, 2024. I'm here with your daily mortgage rate update, the only place on the web where you guys get to join me live each and every day, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time on Facebook and on YouTube. If you're here this morning, say good morning, like Tim Klyla, Mallory Fodiatis, Kyle Mazikis. Good morning, y'all. Mike Brown, great to see you. If you're watching on the replay, don't forget, give us a hashtag replay in the comments. Let me know that you were here. Let Facebook or YouTube know that you were here. Also, remember, whether you're here live or on the replay, don't forget, if you're on Facebook, smash that like button, tag an LO friend, share this with somebody, right? Or put us in a group. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Click that subscribe button. You know the routine and all that stuff. Let's go ahead and say hi to the live folks. We got Kenny Rivard here. Good morning, Mr. Ron Siegel. Today is National Barbecue Day. I can get behind that one. So the question of the day, since today is National Barbecue Day, according to Mr. Siegel, since today is National Barbecue Day, the question of the day is, what is your favorite barbecue? Mine, a good brisket. Don't even need a sauce for it if it's done well. Mine is a good brisket. So what is your favorite barbecue? Is your favorite, I'm writing this down over here, favorite barbecue. We got brisket, ribs, pulled pork, chicken, turkey, sausage. There's so many wonderful things in the world of barbecue. What is your favorite barbecue? The My wardrobe consultant was a bit off yesterday. Yeah, at least there was no mirror. You didn't have to see what was around it. My favorite is brisket. I'm a brisket man myself. So good morning, Dan Crowley, Michael Love. Burnt ends, which is brisket. Yep, that's a good fatty brisket and beans. I'm with Brown. If prepared properly, I'm a big fan of some burnt rib, burnt ends. Michael Love, you say ribs. Are you a pork rib or a beef rib guy? I tend to go with my baby backs. I love me some pork ribs. Beef ribs are good, but pork ribs, I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I do those with the 3-2-1 method on the Traeger. Oh, I love me some pork ribs. All right, you guys keep answering that question of the day. I'm going to keep going and talking about what's going on. Otherwise, we'll be here all morning. Say hi to the rest of the live folks. Ms. Lindenberg, I think we said, Kenny Rivard, Michael Love. Great to see all of you here this morning. A little bit of a quiet crowd. Hopefully it picks up in a minute. So anyway, rate sheets this morning going to be the best that we've seen since March. Let me go ahead and share the screen as I'm sharing this stuff with you and kind of show you this. So if we look over at Mortgage News Daily, rate sheets are the best that we've seen since March. Yesterday, we did improve. I called it. I said it was going to be about an eighth in rate. Most rate sheets were. They were about an eighth in rate, 0.125, and that's what we actually saw. That's what it brought us down to. Conventional conforming now flirting with those sixes again. Still going to see a lot of sevens, let's be realistic, but 6.99, it's the first time we've seen that six preface in a month, more than a month. Remember, over here on 4/16, we were all the way up to 7.5 after the CPI data that came out, right? So this CPI data came out right here, and we're going to go deeper on that in a minute, but that was the kind of the high point of rates, and then they have moved back down. We've seen that 7.5-ish mark now move back down. We've increased or improved rather about a half a point since the worst levels. So that's some really good stuff there. Reprice risk on the day is low. It's got nothing to do with any big, but here, let me get rid of that. Reprice risk on the day is low. I don't think that we have to worry about mortgage bonds moving much. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at those technicals and take a look at those. Also going to throw the lock advice up there. With the lock advice. So anything closing near term in the next 15 days, I would consider locking. I think we are hitting the high point. I'm trying to give this to you in a linear fashion so I don't jump around too much. Call it the happy drugs. I'm on Oxy, which I normally don't take them, but for the first day after, I'll tend to take them. The nerve block. Anyone ever had a nerve block? This is the first time I've ever had a nerve block on any of my injuries. This is the weirdest thing, and now I'm starting to feel that leg wake up. So anyway, back on track here. Focus, right? So anything closing in the next 15 days, I'm thinking it might be a good opportunity to consider locking those. I just think we're probably at the high point for rates. I think rates are close to capping out for now. And I had that on the rate sheet one as well, where I said rates may be close to capping out, at least in the near term. And I think that's kind of where we're at on this. So I'm going to actually share with you guys my commentary here so I stay on track, and we'll talk about this. So basically, my lock advice, if it's closed in the next 15 days, I'd consider locking it. If it's closing in 15 to 30 days, cautiously float. If it's closing in 30 plus days, then we can go ahead and float it. I don't think we really have to worry too much about that at all. Yes, here with me. You guys saw me live yesterday. Here I am doing the lock advice and having my live. They bumped my surgery up. It was supposed to be at 1 p.m. Go to the hospital at 11 morning, all planned out. Life was easy. And then I got a call late in the day that somebody canceled and they wanted to move me up. So I was in at 8 in the morning. So there you go. Rate sheets today, the best we've seen since March. Question is how much better they can get. Reprice risk on the day is low. Shouldn't have to worry about bonds losing too much ground, although we could see some give back from yesterday's gains. Let me bounce back here and see. I'm just curious if you guys see me when you, yeah, you see me in the corner when I do that. Okay. I want to try something. I am going to snap this over here and going to take this and snap this over here. Bear with me. I'm just going to try this real quick. It may or may not work the way I want. But, okay, that did weird things. Where is... It doesn't let me adjust. It doesn't like that. All right, never mind. We're going to put this back and go back to where we were. Full screen here. Okay. All right, so let me turn this back on. All right, so go back here. We're going to keep going with what's going on. So this is the key. Quick summary on why rates are where they are now. All right. Last month's CPI data is the final straw that pushed markets to fear that the Fed may actually not cut rates at all this year and could even be forced to go back to hiking. So if we take a look here and we look at mortgage bonds, you see this giant, hold on, let me just move this a little bit and I can click there and it won't do that. All right, so you see this giant red candlestick right here. That was April 10th. That was the CPI data. Before that, we were up here hanging out in this range. That CPI data, that was the final straw. It was the third consecutive one that came in above expectations. And I told you guys, it was an overreaction. It really was. There was no reason to see this huge loss because of that. But what happened is it created a pivot here in expectation where for the last month now, we have seen markets were pricing in that we would either stay flat, maybe a rate cut, possibly two. 3 was off the table, down to 17%. It's gone up since then to about 22%. Not that big of a change, right? Not that big of a change at all. So it's, like I said a minute ago, I still say it was an overreaction. The fear of rate hikes, though, drove bond yields up and pushed mortgage-backed securities down. And it pushed rates back up to the worst level that we had seen since last October. Now, when you look at mortgage bonds and we put this 6 months, take a look here. Let me see. I'm going to have to go to a year actually at this point to get you. So here we were in October, right? These were the worst levels. And here we were back in August of 23. Well, when we saw that CPI data, that pushed us way down out of that range, pushed us down here. We weren't all the way down. That's why we didn't see rates go back up to 8. Remember, back in October, we were up in the 8s. And then what was this pivot? Why did we see mortgage bonds take this huge trend of improvement? It's because the Fed basically said we're done hiking rates. And markets took rate hikes off the table and bonds reacted and responded positively. Mortgage rates improved a lot, right? A little too much, as we figured out, as markets went from one extreme to the other, as they tend to do, as annoying as that is. Now, when we got this here, we had a huge drop and markets had another shift in sentiment where they said, okay, we're not going to see any rate cuts. We might even see rate hikes. And that was why we seen things get ridiculously high where rates went back up to 7.5. All right. So the fear of rate hikes drove up bond yields. It drove the 10-year treasury yield up. It drove everything, all of the rates up. Well, at the last Fed meeting, right, which was on May 1st, Fed Chair Jerome Powell, after the meeting in his press conference, he pulled the possibility of rate hikes off the table, restoring some of the order and optimism in the markets. That was the first step where we started to see things turn around. And again, that was on April. You can see it right here in the charts. That was on May 1st, April 30th to May 1st. Look, we ended the day down here at 99.06. The next day we were at 99.45. We gained 50 basis points, all right? 40 basis points rather. In one day, recovered 40 basis points. And then over the course of that week, over the next couple of days, we were all the way up to 100.10. Now, remember, on this Friday, May 3rd, we got the jobs data. That was followed by a weaker than expected BLS jobs data meeting right after the meeting, which basically helped land the 1-2 punch. The Fed is now looking at the labor market, inflation, and some other economic indicators. That's what they're looking at. That's their order, right? The Fed's mandate is to promote maximum employment and stable prices. Let's call stable prices 2% inflation. Now, again, the Fed doesn't use the CPI, we'll use the PCE to find that 2%, but lower inflation is still lower inflation. So when the Fed sees signs of softening employment, which is what we got in the last labor data, now we're also seeing signs of making progress again in inflation. Let's talk about those inflation numbers. I didn't really get to go over this yesterday. So the headlines are really great on this, but the reality is the movement's very small. Ron Siegel, back me up. Where are you? Let me find my thing here. Let me go back to the live for a minute. Okay. Let me go back to, so the Ron, back me up here. The actual improvement in inflation, it's not impressive. Okay. It's not huge. Last month's miss was not huge, but the overreaction, not just the reaction, the overreaction, at least they're consistent. We always see an overreaction. The markets tend to move very strongly and shift based on the most recent data. They don't go deeper, like Ron has pointed out with Danielle DiMartino Booth, and different folks that go deeper, right? So let me go ahead. I want to show you guys the screen again. I want to show you some labor data. So look here. This is the core number. This is core CPI, Consumer Price Index inflation. In September of last year, we were at 4.1. Before that, 4.3. Well, we were at a high all the way here, right? But let's go to kind of here, right? 4.1, 4.0 in October, 4.0 in November, 3.9 in December, 3.9 in January, 3.8 February, 3.8 in March, 3.6 in April. So I don't know why they're like, oh, this is the first time it's gone down in 3 months, and blah, 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 blah. Look at these numbers. This is exactly what we would be expecting to see right now. And I'm going a little bit deeper than just mortgage rates, but normally we're not going to see inflation get that much better without the economy tanking. The normal course, and this was actually very well stated in this article here at Barron's. So let's read this together, right? So what's been so amazing is about how inflation has cooled since its 2022 peak is that it happened without a slump in it. That's not how it's supposed to happen. The chain usually works like this. The economy gets hot, which spurs faster inflation. The Fed then raises rates, which puts the brakes on the economy, and that eventually brings price increases to heel. Then the Fed lowers borrowing costs to revive the economy, and the cycle starts again. Even though the Fed raised interest rates at the fastest pace in a generation, the economy kept chugging along. That looks like it's starting to change. Retail sales suggest consumers, who account for some 70% of gross domestic product, are finally starting to hold back on spending. And again, what have we talked about the whole time, y'all? People are spending on credit. Consumer confidence is weakening. There are more clues to be found in Walmart's earnings and the initial jobless claims report this morning. So the problem is, if the economy really is cooling quickly, the Fed would hope inflation rates would be falling a bit more. And I think everything just has a bit of a lag. Inflation could sticky with rates for the first 3 months of the year stronger than hoped for. So the reason that I'm kind of giving you guys all this, and let me go back to my happy little face now. Ron said last month's miss was also revised. The revision changes data, but does not change the fact of how many people were hurt over the past month due to the BLS error. Now I know, and now you sound like Barry. I did see Barry's thing on that. So it is what it is, y'all. Come on. I mean, how hurt were people with mortgage rates? They'll be able to refinance, blah, blah, blah. The world is what it is. Give me a break. But where I will go with this is that the reason we're talking so deeply about this is what might happen. So near term for mortgage rates, I don't think they're going to go down much farther than where they're at anytime soon. If we look at mortgage bonds, I'll flip the screen back on. If we look here at, that's pictures. If we look here at mortgage bonds, we didn't see a continuation improvement today. That's kind of us. The fact that you did not see another day of gains and that we're down 8 or 9 basis points, not a huge loss. The fact that we're not seeing continued momentum shows me that this firework has gone off and is probably going to explode here. Okay. Our peak is actually right around here where we saw this one, 101.09. Here was one, this one started at 101.06. This one peaked at 101. So right around that 101 mark, we're gonna cap out. This is about this previous high that we got over here in March. Those are the best levels that we're going to see mortgage bonds hit. And what we haven't seen, even after yesterday's data, right? Take a look here. I have the CME chart up. Now, the lighter color is a month ago. The darker gets the more recent. So it goes a month ago, a week ago, yesterday, and today. When you look, there was no huge. A month ago, we were at a 17% expectation that we would see 3 rate cuts, right? 3 Fed rate cuts. Now we're at 23%. That's 5%, 6%. 6%. It didn't go up to like 40%. It went up 6%. The idea that we'll still see 2 rate cuts. A month ago, 34. A week ago, 37. Yesterday, 39. Today, 38. This did not go up where the expectation of 1 rate cut dropped tremendously and 2 rate cuts went up. If we had seen this would be a better indicator of how markets really feel. So yesterday's reaction, this was a small reaction, a tame reaction, a short-term reaction. We've seen some really nice improvement. It puts us back above where we were after last month's CPI data, which was also an overreaction. We're kind of back to net zero, if you will, on this. I don't think we're going to see a lot of improvement. Our next shot at seeing another big jump is about 3 weeks from now when we get to the June 7th BLS jobs data. That's the next big move. Now, we're going to see some moves up and down like we always do, but I think you're going to see mortgage rates that are basically falling between, 6.95, if we use Mortgage News Daily as a reference point, 6.95, 7.15. We're going to be 6 7/8 and 7 1/8 as a base rate. You're going to see that quarter point normal, movement day to day. Some days better to lock than others kind of thing. I don't think you're going to see much better or much worse than that until we get to that data. What do you think, guys? You tell me in the comments what you all think. Let me go ahead and flip back here. I'll look at what you guys have been saying as well. Ron, always appreciate your feedback on this. I was going to try to get you on today and talk about it with a link, but I'm sorry, I just didn't get my shit together this morning. So let me know what you guys think. Again, we're 20 minutes in. I would have thought we'd have more people on the live stream today to talk about this. This is a big one, kind of where we're at. I think rates, again, as far as where we go, I think that rate sheets are pretty close to capped out for now. I would consider locking some of the loans near term. Anything is closing in May. It's probably a good time. You don't have to, not a huge sense of urgency. We shouldn't see any big losses, but we're probably going to see some pullback before we see some more improvement. Next week, there's not a lot of data ahead of the holiday. Let me show you guys the screen for a minute real quick. We'll look at the calendar for next week. The calendar here, when we look at the economic calendar, again, shout out to MBS. I'm using their economic calendar here. Yes, I monitor all the services, by the way, but let's see, economic calendar. Here you go. So for next week, you got a lot of Fed speaking. Look at this, a lot of Fed speeches. But the Fed's going to be saying the same thing: higher for longer, higher for longer, higher for longer. Blah blah blah. Look at that Fed chair yelling. Not anymore. She's the treasurer, secretary, treasury. I don't know. Call it the Oxy, but you know where I'm going. Secretary of the Treasury. So Wednesday, we've got the FOMC meeting. I don't think that's going to be a big one, though. He's got that yellow start, which is usually a big deal. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I think Thursday's PMI data is going to be a pretty big deal. We got a lot of fluff next week, and then markets close early on Friday for the holiday. So there's really not anything next week that's going to influence rates. I think we're in a good spot. Keep that in mind, as far as where we go on that. So, good morning, Mandy Kangas. Yeah, I'm glad to see me doing it too. Thank you. Ashley said, I don't think we'll see huge pullback, but ebb and flow for sure. Think we're going, let me put your chats up here so you guys can. So there you go. I don't think we'll see the huge pullback, but ebb and flow for sure. But think we're going to see some decent improvement next Fed meeting too. Yeah, I think we will with the next Fed meeting, but that's not for a while. That's not until after the June 7th jobs data. The meeting comes out on June 12th. Ron said, don't tell me you're a marry the house, date the rate BS. Follow last month's CPI miss, the rate cut market adjusted. So people made decisions on poor data. People make poor decisions all the time, Siegel. If they just listen to us, and again, I bought my first condo, dude, at 12% interest. I paid $97,000. I made equity in the course of 2 years. I sold it and used that as a down payment for my $284,000 first home purchase. That home today is probably in the 400s. There's no bad time to buy a house. I've got friends, kids that are buying houses now with rates and stuff. And I told them what I thought was going to happen. And they acted accordingly. But it's never really a bad time. Ron said, we have no real inflation right now. Dude, I would disagree. I think we do. Take out shelter and motor vehicle insurance out of the core. You know what? Where inflation is? Corporate earnings. It's the reason the stocks are blasting through the roof. You and I should go on your show. We should talk about this. I know I said that before and I haven't followed through. I've just been real busy. But that's where, to me, all the inflation is on the corporate side. I'm not reading this anywhere. This is my take on things. It's the reason the stock market continues to hit. The Dow is hitting new highs. The S&P is hitting new highs. Normal, healthcare costs. What is this leg injury going to cost me? Let's not even go there. I go on Amazon and I could get a brace for my leg and it's $60. When I get it from the orthopedist office, it's going to be $600. Okay. Captive audience much. What I pay for medical premiums in order for me to then have to pay a $15,000 deductible out of pocket for surgery and injury that's here. There's going to be so many things. So there's a lot of it. Corporate food earnings through the roof right now. I got that stupid Apple stuff, right? So all those different things that are, in my opinion, are what are doing it. But Kyle said we'll get better rates going forward due to the Fed repurchases that start in June. Don't buy into that too much, Kyle. Don't buy into it too much. Number one, they're not doing anything with mortgage-backed securities. They're going to release less in treasuries, but they're going to continue to eliminate mortgage-backed securities off their balance sheet. And the word on the street is that they're not going to buy mortgage-backed securities again. They don't need to. The housing market is still strong. The only reason the Fed is going to manipulate mortgage rates is if the housing market were to fall into a slump, if we see a huge problem, and that's not going to happen. There's no reason for that. So don't get your head wrapped around this one, my friend. Do not put that word out on the street because I think it will come back and bite you in the ass. Siegel, what do you think? I do not think we see rates get better based on this. Yes, rates will improve when the 10-year improves in theory, blah, blah, blah. But it all comes back to mortgage-backed securities. And mortgage-backed securities, the Fed is still feeding them off. Anyway, so there's 32 of you on. I appreciate each and every one of you. We've been on for 25 minutes. I shouldn't be talking this long. I'm healing. I'm going to get back to work here. And thank you guys. I think we hit everything. I think we talked about everything. Thanks again for sticking with me today. Yesterday, I had to be really brief because like I said, I was supposed to have my surgery today. They were like, hey, you're doing it early. What are you going to tell them? No, I have to do my lock advice. Plus, I'm not going to lie. I like to be early in the day on a surgeon. I know for me, I get fatigued going into the afternoon. And it's not that the guy's going to make a mistake. The surgeon's going to make a mistake or do something wrong. But I'd rather he be fresh and ready to go in the morning. I like being early on the docket when it comes to something like surgery. Same thing when my wife had surgery a few weeks ago, an unexpected surgery, and she was early in the day, and I was excited about that. We talked about that rather than they were going to fit her in at 5 o'clock, and I was like, oh, I really hate that idea that she's getting in at the last of the day. So anyway, Ashley said, real quick, I missed the first start. What is the improvement amount of basis points we've seen this week? Let me go ahead and fire that up for you. We'll take a look. This week, I got to get rid of this. Hold on a minute. This week, we have seen on Friday, we ended at 100.08. We're at 100.69 right now. So that's 61 basis points. So we've seen 61 basis points for the week. We were up as much as 100.78 yesterday, and now we're down to 100.69, down another 11 bips. So 68 basis points for the week, my friend Ashley. Ron said rates will improve based on poor employment numbers. I agree. Lower inflation, reduced spread between the 10-year and 30-year. That, I think, is a good thing as well. So QE will definitely have an impact, not directly with MBS, but will trickle in. I don't know, Kyle. Again, how much of that is going to be along with everything else, but we'll give it. So, all right, y'all. Thanks again for joining me. I'll see you guys tomorrow. People are dropping off. That means I'm overstaying my welcome. I'll catch y'all later. Bye.